Did I say I was on a book buying ban? Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris and today's video is my quarter 4 2022 book haul. This is probably going to go up in February, ironically, because I have no space to put it in the January videos. These are all the books that I purchased over the last quarter of 2022. A lot of these will be ebooks because I did slim down on those physical purchases just because I'm moving. I didn't want to have to move too many more books than I already had, because at the time of filming, which is 4 days before we move out of this house, there's like 20 boxes of books in the spare bedroom. So there's a lot of books, and I tried my darndest not to add too many more to the move itself. So there are a lot of ebooks in this haul. I will put timestamps down below if you want to skip the ebooks and just get to the physical books, of which I do have a few, but they will be at the end. Before we jump into the actual book haul, make sure you're checking the description box down below for links to my Discord and social media, should you want to come along for the ride. Now, there are heaps of ebooks and a handful of audiobooks. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. I'm not going to go into the blurbs of any of them, but I will put their covers on the screen here and maybe give you a one sentence as to why it caught my attention. So I'm going to start off with a few things that I already owned in another format. So I might have owned these physically and I've bought the ebook copy, or I might own the ebook and I've gone ahead and purchased the Audible or the audio credit as well, just so that I've got different variations of the book to read in one media format or another. So the first thing I'm going to say is I've got audio copies of Bonds of Chaos by Zach Argyle, Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Maytar, Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell, and Sins of the Mother by Rob J. Hayes. So I own all of these in one or another format, but I've gone ahead and got the audio copies just to maybe push it up on my TBR, and it has worked for 3 of these. I have read Bonds of Chaos, Mexican Gothic, and also Sins of the Mother by having the availability to have it on audio. So the 2 here that really captured my attention are Legacy of the Brightwash and Dragon Mage. These are both books I've heard nothing but excellent things about, and I just haven't gotten around to the copies that I already have. So having it on audio, if I have some time in a month, they will likely be the ones that slip in to the audio time that I have on any given month. So I have picked up those as well. Likewise, I've got physical copies of Isa or Issa by L.L. McRae and Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, but I've purchased these on e-copy because I really do want to get to them in 2023, but they're big books and I don't want to take them to my parents' house, so I'll be reading these on my Kindle rather than have the physical books with me. Then we move on to the new purchases which have happened on my Kindle, my poor Kindle that is struggling for life at this point because of how much I've downloaded in the last little bit. First up, we have the Demon Hunters trilogy. This is by Tiger Herbert. Now, this is a little bit out of my normal scope. This is YA epic fantasy. All 3 of these books are about 200 pages. We've got Faith and Fury, Dark Pact, and Herald of the Nine. I really like Herbert's sort of advertising in the way that he goes about talking about his books, which gets me intrigued about what these stories are. They are aimed a little bit younger, maybe even new adult. I think when I looked at the description, it was between 13 and 18 years. So we'll see how I feel when I actually get to them, knowing that I don't typically read YA or NA novels. We'll see. But I picked up the trilogy for like $2 and that is awesome, so I grabbed that one. Next one we have is The Traitors We Are. This is Crowd and Tide Book 1 by Michael Roberti. This is sword and sorcery / military fantasy. I really like Michael Roberti over on Twitter. I like some of the commentary and I found out that he was an author, so I picked up his book. Moving on from there, we have The Empire's Lion. This is the Imperial Adept Book 1 by Nathan Tudor. This is desert fantasy and the tagline is, "She left a slave, she returns a conqueror." Absolutely, yes, on my radar. Plus it's like 700 pages long. If I'm really looking for an indie tome, I'm going to jump into this one. Moving on from there, we have one of my favorite covers to come out of 2022, and that is The Assassin of Grins and Secrets, The Grinning Assassin Book 1. This cover has got me. Covers are over here now, not here like normal. And just the smirk and the simple eye-popping color of this cover has me intrigued. I do want to get to this one at some point soon. I just have to know. I have to know what's going on there. Next up, we have The House with the Golden Door. This is the first traditionally published book that I bought on the Kindle. This is the Wolf Den Book 2 by Elodie Harper. I loved The Wolf Den. It was a 5-star read for me. This is a historical fiction. I would even go so far to say it's a historical contemporary fiction. It's following the life of some women who were in a brothel in Pompeii, focusing on one. I think her name was Amara, if I'm not mistaken. But I really enjoyed it. Very much looking forward to book 2, but the paperback doesn't come out in Australia until June of 2023. So I went ahead and picked this one up on Kindle. Next up, we have Season of Kings by A.J. Retker. This is Raven's War Book 1. I've just heard some really good things about this one from some reviewers that I trust, so I thought I would pick this one up as well and get to it when I get to it. Next up, we have Bones to the Wind and Dragon Your Bones by Tatiana Obey. These are priority reads for me coming into 2023, and if I like these books as much as I like the author interactions and also these covers, I would pick these up in hardback, but I just want to make sure that I love them first before I go ahead and fork out all that money for some hardcovers, because I really do like the author and I really do like these covers. I think they're absolutely stunning. I hope these books live up to the hype for me that I've put in my own head, and I'm really looking forward to getting to them. Next up, we've got The Crew. This is the God Dust Saga Book 1 by Sadia S. Samir. This just looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a good fantasy romp. We've got an ensemble cast that looks a bit cheeky. I love the cover, I love the blurb, and I just need to know what happens, so I picked this one up as well. I think I found this one off a indie list, an indie release list. A few of these are from the indie release lists. Next up, I've got The 13th Hour. This is by Trudy Skies. This is book 1 of The Cruel Gods. This is steampunk fantasy, and with a name like The Cruel Gods, it has my attention. I haven't read a whole lot of steampunk fantasy. I do enjoy steampunk elements in fantasy, so I'm looking forward to picking this one up, and it's pretty high up on the Spiffbo round 8 or whatever round that we're in at the moment. People are enjoying it. Next up, I've got Gifts of Pandora by Matt Larkin. This is a retelling of Pandora's myth, and it's part of a series called Tapestry of Fate. And this is book number 1. This is historical fantasy retellings of mythology. Matt Larkin has me really intrigued as an author. He's come up on my radar a few times now, so I thought I might look at one of the older books and see if I vibe with the writing style and then go on from there. Similarly, I picked up a couple of Phil Tucker's books in the same vein. I'm quite interested in Phil Tucker's work. My friend Mark absolutely loves Bastion, so I picked up a copy of that, but I've also gone back to an older series called The Chronicles of Fate, and I've picked up the omnibus edition of this, and it only cost like $11 for I think something like 7 books. There was quite a good deal, so I've picked up that, and if I like it, that's great. I own them all, and if I really like it, that sucks for my wallet because I want to own them physically, but I have those to try. After that, I picked up The Atticus Trials by D.K. Taine. This is the Spoken Books Uprising. I quite like the look of this one. I can't remember the blurb, but I bought it though, so I own it now whenever I get to it. Moving on from there, we have The Altar of My Fate. This is the Rosterval Saga Book 1 by Michael Schultheis. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I love the cover. Love it. This is the company that I want to do my covers whenever I get there. And I saw that Theo from Rekindled Reader wanted to read it, so I thought that I would just blame him for this purchase, even though he's got the physical ones and I've got the e-copy. But maybe when he gets around to it, I'll read it with him and we can chat about it. Moving on from there, we've got An Ocean of Others by Joshua Scott Edwards. This is Dance of Sibling Sons Book 1. Love that series name. That gets me excited. And I missed the ARC request for this one and I got FOMO, so I picked up the e-copy when it became available. Next up, I've got Beast Hunters 1 and 2. So this is Beast Hunters and Beast Hunters Dark Sovereign by Krista Lend. Krista sent me a video on Instagram which was so charming and so different to normal book requests that I get, and I was instantly charmed. Followed up by my buddy Luke Schultz really enjoying the books. These are short, escapist fantasy, they're fast-paced, they're fun, and that excites me as a concept. This is the sort of stuff I want to write, so I want to be reading a lot of it. So I picked up book 1 and 2 and then pre-ordered book 3, which is coming out next year. I think it's fairly early, maybe February. This one just says, an orphan girl becomes a beast hunter apprentice. Can she solve why people turn into violent murderers in broad daylight? Sounds pretty fun to me. After that, I bought Death's Beating Heart by Rob J. Hayes. I am an Hellseen fanboy. No one is shocked that I bought this. I'm not looking at the blurb for selfish reasons. After this, I went into a bit of an indie sale and I picked up Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. This is a superhero space opera. We've got some hero dynamics. I hear it's very easy to read. I honestly do not know if this book will be for me. I've bought book 1 just to give it a go. I think it was like $1, and I'll see where it lands on my personal taste. This is Hybrid Helix book number 1. After that, on the same sale, I picked up No Land for Heroes. This is Legends and Legacies book number 1 by Cal Black. This is a Gaslamp and Western fantasy. I don't think I've read any Western fantasies. I know Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads really does enjoy them, so I want to give them a go because I do trust Andrew's reading taste. I don't think we always align, but I've come to know that usually if he likes something, I'll have a fairly good time with it. So I'm looking forward to giving this one a go. I think he also read this one, but I digress. I picked it up. Next up, I've got The Sword of Mercy and Wrath. This is the Swords of Dominion book 1 by N.C. Kausis. This is Van Helsing, but with werewolves. This is a dark fantasy debut by an Australian author, and I'm going to pick it up because it's dark fantasy and an Australian author. We've got to support those homegrown authors. Moving on from there, I've got The Bleeding Stone. This is The Spellbinders and the Gunslingers book 1. Series name says it all. Really enjoyed it. I actually bought this one up on an indie release. I think it was for December, actually. I think it came into my Kindle quite recently. So I have talked about it already. I'm going to skip past this one. Then I have Valhalla Steel by Sean Crow. This was another Mark suggestion, and I think it was free when I looked at it, and he said that he enjoyed it, so I just picked it up. Moving on from there, I've got Heir of the Hunted, The Hollow World number 1. This is by Richard T. Drake. So if you like unconventional heroes and fast-paced adventure, this one's going to be for you. Sounds like fun. It's a couple of bucks. Thought, why the heck not? Then I have Yellow Sky Revolt by Baptiste Pinson Wu. This is 100% Tori from Tori Talks' fault. And then following on from that, Alan from Library of Alexandria, and there's a bit of buzz surrounding this Asian-inspired historical fantasy following one of the lesser-known characters of the time period in history. I can't tell you what time period it is because information about history goes in one ear and just skips out past the other, but I like historical fiction because all the stories feel fresh because I can't remember anything. And I bought Pilgrim by Harmon Cooper. This is book 1 of the series of the same name. I think there's 7 books in there at the moment. This is another author whose latest book has caught my attention, so I'm going to go back into the backlog first and see if the writing style, has developed. I'm a bit of a sucker for an author backlog. If I know there's a lot of books out, I'll generally go back and have a look at what the first book was or what an earlier book was, just so I can see how that author has grown. That's quite interesting to me, with the exception being J.D.L. Rosell, who I've just picked up the last book from. So I picked this one up. It says a former assassin, an unspeakable past, and a new beginning, which are all buzzwords. So I'm gonna grab that one. Moving on from there, I've got Legacy of the Lost Mage. This is Jaith's Eye Book 1 by K.S. Veloso. This is the author of The Wolf of Orient Yarrow, and it came up for a couple of books. I love the art style of all of K.S. Veloso's books, so I picked it up on a cover buy. We'll see if it's any good. Then I have the fantastically underwhelming epic of a dead wizard and an average bard by Kyan N. Ardalan. I'm looking forward to the book that this author has coming out in February of 2023, so I thought I would jump back and grab the first book, the debut, and give that a look as well. Moving on from there, I have Panacea, an ancient Greek-inspired epic fantasy by Alex Robbins. I don't need to know anything else. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. Like I said, stuff in history, I'm pretty useless, so I apologize if that is wrong. Moving on from there, I've got Reign of Shadows by Angel Hayes. This is Battleborn Mage Book 1. It says a suicidal mission, a cataclysmic power, a darkness that threatens to consume them all, and that sounds pretty cool. I can't remember why I bought this one, but I have it when I checked my history. Then I have Lonely Castles. This is by S.A. Tholen Primateri, book number 2, which is a follow-up to Iron Truth. This is on my series I do want to continue in 2023, so I saw book 2 for about $8 and I picked that one up. Next up I have Burn Red Skies by Kirsten Espinosa Rosario. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry if I did not. This is a book that's been on my radar for a little while now. People who are picking it up have started to really enjoy it, so I thought I would give it a go. I got a voucher for Christmas. It seemed like a good time to load up on ebooks, so I picked this one up as well. Next up, I have Glory's Gone. This is by Anthony Mitchell. I'm really looking forward to getting to Wolf Eater. I love these covers, and I sort of just want to binge all of the books in this world, so I picked this one up so that I can do that whenever I get to it. Then I have The Great Hearts by David Oliver. This is a coming-of-age fantasy, and who are we kidding? We all like a coming-of-age fantasy. Then I picked up is it The Blood and the Broken, or The Blood and the Boundless, or whatever the series that Ryan Cahill is currently writing. I've picked up the books that are available in that series over on Kindle, so that is Of Blood and Fire, Of Darkness and Light, and The Exile. The Fall is no longer available on Kindle, but I think if you sign up to his website, you can get access to that, which is the prequel novella. And then I went ahead and I pre-ordered Of War and Ruin for whenever that comes out. Last two ebooks, and then we'll move on to the physical. I've got Obsidian Awakening by Sienna Frost. I have been on the fence about this one, but I have heard really good things from people that I do trust. And then Craig the Bookworm said it was their book of the year over on Twitter, so I had to. Craig has read some cracking books, and I've picked up some cracking books from Craig's recommendations. So book of the year, I'm gonna give it a go and see if I also enjoy it. And finally from there, I've got Ungodly by Braden Riddick. So Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads asked Leslie from The Nerdy Narrative for a book recommendation, and Leslie put this one on his January TBR, and I quite enjoy Leslie's horror and thriller tastes, so I also just like sideswiped it and bought it so that it can go on my TBR at some time as well. I thought I would give this a go as a bit of a genre mix-up. Those were the ebooks, so let's jump into the physical. There's not a great deal of them. Like I said, I was trying to really cut down on the physical books, but we have some here. These you've seen before. I purchased the Elemental Chronicles by Ross Kingston for myself as a congratulatory, I got a new job. Yay! It starts with The Awakening, goes on to Reaper. Book 3 is Illumination. And then we have Purgatory, which is book 4. The artwork on these books is so stunning. I really, really like it. I don't know if that's going to annoy people because it looks like it's in the wrong order, but they're going to go there. So I picked those up a little while ago. I got this job I found out in October, so I would have purchased it around then. Next up, I picked up from Roger's influence over at Roger Reads. Been trying to get me to read The Jasmine Throne for a while, or The Burning Kingdoms, so I have picked up The Jasmine Throne, which is book 1 by Tasha Suri. I think this is an adult fantasy debut. I'm not sure if the other books that this author has out are YA. And then I picked up The Orlando Sword as well. So I picked up both of those to get to at some point. We've got some badass female characters. We've got sapphic romance. I think there's some military vibes in there as well. And, you know, I do enjoy all of those things. So that will be read at some point in the future. Next up, I got a book voucher when I left my old job, so I picked up a couple of things, and the first one was Kai Kai. This is a historical, is it a retelling? I'm not 100% sure, but it is a historical fiction. Cover is beautiful. I've heard great things about it. I quite like historical fiction with these vibes, so I'm hoping that I enjoy that one as well. Then I've got a few Aussie indie authors to show off, and I have read all 3 of these this year. First being Cam Sinclair. This is The Shadow of the Winter Moon, which is the Craven Chronicles book number 1. Solid debut, had a good time with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from Cam in the future. One of the most unique things I read in 2022 is Dream of Death City. This is by P.J. Nwasu. This is a dark Sherlock Holmes mystery style fantasy with some really intriguing prose. Beautiful and haunting. I had a great time with it. I'm really looking forward to see what PJ Nwasu does next, and I do have a novella in that world that I can read. Then I picked up A King's Radiance by Luke Schultz. This was a great debut. This is one of the first indie debuts that I read, I think, or when I'd started reading more indie on the channel. I picked this one up as an ARC and had a great time with it. Really looking forward to book 2 whenever that may come out. I was approached by one Miss H.C. Newell earlier in the year as well, within Q4, and she asked if I'd be interested in reading The Curse of the Fallen and also The Forbidden Realm, so I have picked up The Curse of the Fallen. Haley was kind enough to send them to me, so that's book 1. And then The Forbidden Realms is book 2. There is a novella out in this world as well, and I believe book 3 is coming out in 2023, so they are being read in, I've got Curse of the Fallen on the radar for January, and then The Forbidden Realms in February. Speaking of lovely people who have sent me things, this one caught me by surprise. This was Marauder. This is the second edition of Marauder by L.L. McRae. It is no secret that I have sung praises to the high heavens for the world of Lunaria, and she saw that I still had the first edition on my shelf, so she sent me the second edition very kindly for Christmas. So it made it just in time for the holiday season, and it just says, "Thank you for all your support, best wishes and happy reading from L.L. McRae." So that was lovely, very chuffed that I have that. Please stay on the pile. Then I have a sci-fi. This was a book that intrigued me from the SPSFC entries for 2022, and this is The Boy Who Walked Too Far by Dom Watson. This cover, you're not going to see it all that well in that light, but it is something else. There's a lot of like magic happening. There's a dagger. Things are swirling. It makes me excited to find out whatever is happening in this book. So I picked that one up on cover alone. I really have no idea what it's about. The formatting is a little bit odd, but I don't know that is the author's fault. I think that may just be Amazon, if that's where I ended up getting it from. The last 3 that I have here today are classics. I thought maybe by buying them in nice editions that I enjoy, it would force me to look at them and then read them. I own this one in all formats that it's available in. This is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Yes, it is. Alex Dumas. So I picked this one up. This is a lovely leather-bound edition. We've got the cloth bookmark happening there. These go for about 50 bucks each. I think I picked this one up for about 30, and I want to read it. It's been on my radar for 2 years now, and I've still not read it. I've got the audio edition. I have a paperback edition. I now have this hardback cloth-bound edition. I just need to read it, and now I've got all the things, so I can do an immersion read, but I don't know when I will get to it. Anyone who's read this book, let me know if it's better to read it physically or on audio, or to do a bit of both. So I have that now. I also picked up Don Quixote. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I've never been able to pronounce it right. I actually have no idea what this is about, but it looked pretty. People seem to like it. It was on Ian from Ian the Reader's TBR for the year, so I was like, perhaps I will put it there too, and we'll see if I enjoy it, but I know very little about it. So that's there. One I've been meaning to read for a really long time is the Iliad by Homer. My wife did her first master's in ancient history, and she really enjoyed the Roman side of ancient history. Her thesis was on it. I read that to impress her when we first got together, and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to learn, more about that sort of thing. But I think I've mentioned before, history just doesn't stick in my head at all. But this is a classic. It's about Achilles, I'm pretty sure. No one quote me on that. I want to read it at some point, and then talk to her about it so that she can explain things to me better. But I own it in the same cloth-bound edition. Those are some books that I've picked up over Q4. What is your favorite from the stack? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.